Hello, I'm Steve Lane. I am a rock and roll musician. Music is in my blood, and I'm a vinyl junkie. Today, we're going to be talking about the current trend going on in the vinyl community, which is my 10 most listened to albums. And since 11 is my number, I got to bump it to 11. Everything I do is in 11. So these are the 11 albums I listen to most. Are these my favorites? Not necessarily. These are just the 11 albums I listen to most. Coming up.
Made in the USA.
Okay, so right off the bat, I want to thank you so much for watching this today. I want to thank you for liking. I want to thank you for subscribing. And what can I say? I love music. Apparently you must too if you're going to be watching this today. So let's dive right in. Right off the bat, we're going to do an honorable mention. This is the Wally World. Not a big fan of Wally World, but what are you going to do? They have stuff that nobody else has. This is the clear edition, clear vinyl, remastered for vinyl, believe it or not, by Steve Perry and this other dude. That was my favorite album when I was a kid, and the reason it's not in my most listened to is because I've heard it so much my whole life. I don't really know if I'm ever going to listen to it again. No, I'm kidding. I've heard it so much, it's crazy, but of course I love that album. It's just an honorable mention. You only get one, and that's it. Journey Escape, the remastered edition. You can only get the clear vinyl version at Wally World, and Steve Perry oversaw the vinyl remastering of it, analog vinyl remastering. It's pretty cool. All right, coming in at number one, numero uno. This is Genesis, Selling England by the Pound. This is the album I listen to most, and my wife and son are really tired of it. But I think this is not only, and I also have the original pressing too on Charisma. This is the Atlantic one, and this one, just like the Steve Perry. Ooh, yeah, it's got this really cool card with the old photo in there of the boys, the flat guys. This also is a clear vinyl pressing, and it sounds remarkable. They did a great job on it. I believe it's the 2018 remaster, which is fine. It sounds great. The remastering was done impeccably well, and I think it's the best progressive rock album ever recorded. Yes, it's my favorite Genesis album, and I'm a huge Genesis freak. It's, to me, the most groundbreaking prog rock album ever made. The compositions, Firth the Fifth, I mean, come on. The Cinema Show. Oh. Actually, Firth the Fifth gives me goosebumps whenever I hear Steve Hackett's solo, and then the Moog bass kicks in, whoa, it shakes the whole house. It did it in concert when they would play it, you know, it shakes the room. It is a great album. I will never get tired of it. I listen to it more than any other album in my collection, and there it is. Next one, this is an album I grew up with again. I got it the day it came out when I was a kid. Well, not the day it came out, I was a kid, but this is Donald Fagen. Let me make sure there's no reflection here. This is Donald Fagen's The Night Fly. This is the best Steely Dan album that was not a Steely Dan album. And the lineup is incredible. If you don't know about this album, then you need to look it up. I mean, it's every single song. This is one of those albums where I know every single word to every single song. I know the order. And yeah, this is it. Donald Fagen, The Night Fly. It's possibly, I don't want to say it's my favorite album of all time, but it might be. But it's a toss-up between that one and the Genesis album. Okay, so speaking of Steely Dan, I don't know what to do here because honestly, it's whatever the current pressing of the Bernie Grundman remaster is. So Bernie Grundman redid all the, it's hard to do this without a reflection here. I'll come way back here. Okay, I'll come way back here. This is Countdown to Ecstasy, and I listen to it a lot because it's the most recent Bernie Grundman remaster I've got, because I don't have Pretzel Logic yet. I'm sure when I get that, it's going to be it. But really, and I'm not much of a greatest hits guy, but I got this, the 8-track at Walgreens when they were closing them out for $1, and it really got me into Steely Dan. This one in gold. This is their greatest hits. It's at way out of print. This is on vinyl, of course. Way out of print. You can't even get it on CD. You can't get it anywhere. It's great, and the reason I listen to it so much is because it's got almost everything up to Asia. Okay, it doesn't have Qwatrow because this is an ABC pressing, and Qwatrow was on MCA, and so it does not have FM on it. Still, it's I don't like to talk about greatest hits, but this is just play all the time because everything's on it. And it's just convenient and it's easy, and I don't have to bring out all my Steely albums if I want to hear some Steely. So that's probably the only greatest hits album on here. And it's, like I said, these are not my favorite albums, they're just my go-to albums, the ones I listen to the most. All right, here's another one that's kind of like a tie because my dear friend Tammy got me this album. This is Louder Than Bombs by the Smiths, and this is Hatful of Hollow by the Smiths. And neither of these are really an album, they're like a compilation of their singles, and they treated their singles like they did their albums. They promoted them separately, and they had different cover art for each one, and these songs never really had a home on an album, and this is where a lot of them ended up. And the reason that these are kind of 2 for 1, this is a double album, this is a single album, and it shares about 6 songs between them, except for one version of The Old House, which is one of them. On this one is my preferred version, where it's just, it was for the BBC John Peel sessions, and it was just Johnny Marr playing acoustic and Morrissey singing, and the other one is the band version of The Old House. Besides that, it shares about 5-6 songs between the two of them. I love the Smiths. I think they're the most important indie British band of all time. I'm a Smiths head. What can I say? I could talk for hours about the Smiths and Johnny Marr, and yeah, I love the Smiths. So kind of a 2 for 1 because they share about 6 songs, and I listen to them equally a lot. A lot. This one is the remastered version, Kevin Gray remaster of What's Going On by Marvin Gaye. One of the best albums ever made. I gotta be careful, I got a hype sticker in here, I don't want it to fall out. Oh, it's tremendous. It's full analog remaster. Kevin Gray did a fantastic job, and I grew up with this album. I mean, this is the album that I listened to all the time because my mom had it. And I know all the songs again. I know all the words to all the songs. It's a groundbreaking album. I think Rolling Stone nominated it the best album of all time. I mean, I can't really argue with that, even though it's not my personal favorite. It is one of the best albums, if not possibly the best album ever made. Who knows? This one, oh boy, do I listen to this one a lot. Man, this is the second CD. I'm gonna get away from the reflection. This is Roxy Music Avalon. This is the second CD I ever bought. And it was great to have it. God, there are a lot of reflections. Sorry about that. It's great to have it on vinyl. It's remastered at Abbey Road Studios, 180 gram, half-speed mastered. It came out a little while ago. Man, I love this album. This was Roxy at their peak. You know, it has More Than This, of course. It has Avalon, of course. My DJ name is DJ Avalon. Named it after that. Love that album. Play it all the time. Now this is another 2 for 1 because I listen to them both equally. This is The Stranger by Billy, and this is 52nd Street by Billy, and I listen to both of them all the time. And I mean all the time. This was kind of holds a special place in my heart. 52nd Street was the very first CD ever issued. It was on Columbia, of course, and CBS, what have you. And I remember buying the CD when it was new, and it was like this cool thing, you know, these compact discs, and I just played the crap out of that. I never really had The Stranger until, I mean, I knew all the songs and I had all the greatest hits and stuff, but I never really accepted this as an album until I had this album, and I listened to them both equally, so another 2 for 1. All right. Zeppelin, Houses of the Holy. In all fairness, this is not my album. This is Wifey's album. I'm not going to take it out. Everybody knows this album, okay? This is House of the Holy, their 5th album from Led Zeppelin. And this is my wife's album. She got it for her birthday, and sorry, babe, I've been listening to it all the time, almost every day. Yes, I've got the other Zeppelin albums, but this one's special. That is a very special album. I absolutely love it. There's another one that's my wife's album, and the only reason I put this on the list is because it's my wife's favorite album, one of them. And I just play it all the time just to make her happy. I mean, who doesn't love this album? Everybody has Fleetwood Mac Rumors. If you don't have it, that sucks. It's Rumors. It's one of the most famous albums of all time. What are you going to do? Oh, speaking of clear vinyl from what? I've had 2 other clear vinyl albums. This is a clear vinyl edition of Out of the Blue by ELO, Electric Light Orchestra, Jeff Lynne. And again, clear vinyl. Let's see if I can get some of these out without messing them up. Yep, clear vinyl. It's a great album. It's fantastic. It's remastered. We bought this years ago when we started getting back into vinyl. So like around 2015, I believe, we went on a vinyl binge, wifey and I. We went absolutely nuts. That was one of the few brand new pressing albums we got. Here's another colored vinyl. This is the last one. And this is White Snake's Greatest Hits, revisited, remixed, and remastered. And man, let me tell you what. Honestly, Qwatrow is not a good lyricist. He has a great voice, and the musicianship is impeccable. It rocks. It's just fantastic. I'm a big White Snake fan. Not because of the hype, not because of the videos, not because of any of that, just strictly because of the musicianship, and he never really had a band. David Qwatrow's first solo album was called White Snake. All right, so whenever I hear White Snake, I don't hear a band. I hear David Qwatrow and all these fantastic musicians. It's just it's always been a revolving door, except for Tommy Aldridge, who signed on in '87 as the drummer, and he stayed with him the whole time. Besides Tommy, everybody else is a revolving door. My favorite rock drummer of all time is on here, Cozy Powell. Who else is on here? Ainsley Dunbar is drumming on here. It's fantastic. Every single one of these songs is great. This is red vinyl. This is a red pressing. I really like that. Ta-da! Red vinyl. It's a great album, and what Qwatrow did, I think, during the pandemic is he stayed in his studio in Tahoe, and he owns the rights to all of his songs, and man, he just went crazy remastering this album. He remixed Still of the Night like 6 or 7 times, and there's all these different versions of all these great songs, and Slide It In is my favorite album of theirs, and it sounds like they just recorded it with today's technology. It does not sound like an 80s recording. That's the biggest beef I have with 80s rock recordings, is it just sounds so tin and compressed and limited and just, like I love Dokken. Dokken's one of my favorite 80s rock bands, and they just sound a little tight and compressed, and I mean, I think Beau Hill could have done a better job producing, but what are you gonna do? It's the 80s, that's the 80s sound. It's just like all this tight compression, and you play that album with an original pressing, and just like, whoa, night and day different. It sounds like they just went into the studio and used modern gear to record it. It's fantastic. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and listening to my 11 most listened to albums. These are not my favorite albums. They just happen to be the ones that I listen to the most. Those are my go-to albums, my 11 go-to albums. And then in some cases they were 2 for 1 because it's a tie. I can't decide which one I listen to more. But thanks again for listening. If you haven't already, please like, please subscribe. It really helps out the channel. Until next time I see you, be cool and keep rocking.